moment going to start the hearings related to a number of pieces of legislation. But I know several of our colleagues in the media were interested in yesterday's briefing by the NYPD, and I wanted to make a few comments on that, first in English, then in Spanish, and then I'll be happy to take a few questions related to public safety. So you heard from the NYPD monthly briefing yesterday. Through May 31st of this year, overall crime in New York City is down 6.6%. This is very important for the people of the city to understand. Overall crime is down 6.6% in this city compared to the same point last year. In specific terms, that means there have been 2,700 fewer crimes. 2,700 fewer crimes at this point this year compared to the same point last year. That is a remarkable achievement. The credit goes to the men and women of the NYPD and to their leaders who have been constantly improving their strategies and their deployments to achieve this result. This is a striking result and one that is worthy of a lot of praise, and one that means for 2,700 New Yorkers, they have not experienced crime even compared to the record low year of last year. And I remind you, last year we set records for crime reduction compared to the year 2013, which was considered by many a year that was unbeatable. So NYPD has proven in recent years that it can do extraordinary things to reduce crime. In fact, over 20-plus years, the NYPD has been consistently driving down crime in this city, and we will continue that progress. There has been, obviously, an uptick in homicides and shootings. It is something we take very, very seriously. It's something we're addressing right now. There is no more important priority for me than public safety, and every day I review the numbers, and every day we're working with the NYPD to make sure our strategies and our deployments are having the maximum impact. There's no question that everyone at the NYPD takes it seriously, as does everyone here at City Hall. That being said, we know for sure that the increase in both murders and shootings has occurred in a small number of precincts, and it has been primarily because of gang and crew is, and who the perpetrators are and what kind of pattern we are dealing with here. It's quite distinct, it's quite clear, and that is why NYPD is moving, as we speak, resources and energy toward the problem areas. As you heard yesterday, we announced the Summer All Out program, which was extraordinarily successful last year. Summer All Out begins next week. We will move 330 officers to high-crime locations. We saw last year what a profound impact that had. We know it will have the same profound impact this year. If you recall, last year, we were at a point just around this time of year, the end of the spring, beginning of the summer, where we saw an uptick in crime. There was tremendous concern in communities around the city, rightfully. And then you saw, as a result of Summer All Out and other initiatives, we turned those numbers very quickly and intensely, so that by the end of 2014, we had had the safest year in decades. We had the lowest murder rate in almost 50 years. That's something to remember. NYPD has seen challenges before and has overcome them. I have a lot of faith in the men and women of the NYPD. I know they will turn the tide this time, just like they did last year. I also want to say that Commissioner Bratton and his team are constantly refining their strategies. By the way, Commissioner Bratton, the father of the ComStat approach, the whole idea that he brought to this department first 20 years ago, and he has reinvigorated it now, is to constantly improve strategy and tactics, to constantly make the moves that allow us to fight crime more effectively. He is doing that now, as is his leadership team, and I have great, great faith in them. New York City continues to be an extraordinarily safe city, the safest big city in America. That is clear, and we will continue that tradition, and we will improve upon it. Let me just say a few words in Spanish before taking a few questions on this topic. El crimen en la ciudad de Nueva York se ha reducido en 6.6% en el último año. Eso es un logro impresionante del Departamento de Policía. Sin embargo, hemos visto un aumento en tiroteos y homicidios este año. Esto es un problema que tomamos muy en serio. Sabemos que el aumento en tiroteos se debe a actividad de pandillas en ciertas áreas. El programa Summer All Out que anunciamos ayer desplegará 330 policías en esas áreas. Nueva York sigue y seguirá siendo una ciudad extraordinariamente segura. With that, we welcome your questions. We're going to take just a few questions on this topic. Dave.
Mayor, you mentioned gang activity, but what do you say to the Pat Lynches of the world who are looking at the homicide and shooting numbers and say, this is what results when you reform police, reform stop and frisk, put a lot of new rules on the police, that because of that, there's a correlation to an uptick in shootings and homicides?
Well, I'd say a couple different things. First of all, I'd remind you that the PBA also believed that the stop and frisk effort was the wrong policy, and that's a matter of fact. Stop and frisk was applied with such a broad brush as to be unconstitutional. That's what the federal court found. We came up with a better approach under the leadership of Commissioner Bratton. We stop people who have done something wrong, and you see that in the statistics. The bottom line here is what's clear is that last year we faced a similar challenge and we overcame it. How? By applying our officers where the need was greatest, by improving our strategies, by using the leadership we had in the NYPD to make the right strategic decisions. And I would say since last year, a lot has changed for the better in some key precincts. We have now coming online the smartphones and the tablets in the vehicles. That means officers are going to have instantaneously the information they need to find perpetrators. We have better training than we had a year ago. We have, you can see now from the CCRB records, improved relationship between police and community. You can tell because complaints about police are down 25%. We have time and energy that's been freed up by getting away from the inappropriate stops and getting away from low-level marijuana arrests and putting that time and energy into going after violent crime. So I am confident that all these pieces are going to come together and turn the tide just as we did last year. Jonathan.
Mr. Mayor, does this uptick of violence influence your thinking at all in terms of hiring more police officers? And just related, you mentioned Commissioner Bratton is formulating strategies to combat this. Is additional manpower one of the things he has considered and talked about?
Yeah, I remember last year very vividly we went through such a similar situation. And Commissioner Bratton was quite clear with me. He had great faith that the men and women at NYPD could get ahead of the situation, and they did. They didn't just match the 2013 numbers. They surpassed the 2013 numbers. Now, I would say it's quite clear they have a lot more tools today than they did last spring and last summer. And I know that that's going to make a huge impact. So my argument has been simple all along. If you take the finest police force in the world with the finest leadership of any police force, and you give more time to officers to focus on serious crime, because that's what we've done. We've taken time away from the needless stops. We've taken time away from the low-level marijuana arrests. We put that time into going after serious crime. You're giving them better technology, better training. That will clearly turn the tide. So my answer is the steps are already being taken to turn the situation around. But here's the other part of the equation, and we have to be clear about this. Look, every single day I'm going over those numbers, and I feel them deeply. But at the same time, we see an overall reduction in crime. We have to recognize that that trend speaks volumes too. The NYPD is getting more effective all the time and working more closely with communities to lower crime. Aaron.
Sorry, just to follow up on that, is that a no? Does that mean you still think we do not?
I believe what I've said all along.
Do you have any specific tactics to get guns off the street? Do you see any challenge or any connection at all between more of a difficulty getting guns off the street with fewer stops?
Look, we have a problem in this country with guns. There's no question about it. I'm wearing this flag symbol today because today is a day devoted to awareness about gun violence all over this country. And we need stronger laws, and we need, obviously, a number of states in this country to stop allowing guns to flow so freely that so often end up on the streets in New York City. But that being said, the efforts that we're under, our approach was working, and I think the approach will deepen this year and be ever more effective. So to me, it's simple. We have in this nation a gun problem. We have in this city a challenge to get these guns off the streets. But we have the right approach for driving down crime. We have factual evidence of that. We have the right approach for turning the tide. And in that, we will get a lot of guns away from the bad guys. And that work continues to be refined all the time. What we know is assertive policing, done with the right kind of training and the right kind of technology, can get the guns off the street. We haven't had until now some of the technology we needed. We haven't had until now the retraining of the entire police force. We've had a lot of energy put into the wrong priorities. When all of these new factors come into play and are felt for a sustained period of time, I guarantee we're going to get a lot more guns. Thanks, everyone. We're going to the hearing now. Thank you, everyone. So anyone who needs to leave before the hearing begins, this is your moment. Welcome. I will stay. I think it's wise. Yeah. Twice in 3 days. My name is Conscience. Good. Okay, we have a number of pieces of legislation today. All right, everyone. We're going to start with Intro 579A. Intro 579A requires the fire department to report gender and racial makeup of the firefighter exam applicants at every stage of the applicant process. The sponsor of this legislation is the lead sponsor is Councilmember Helen Rosenthal. The number of women and people of color in the FDNY ranks is still not representative of our city's diversity. Commissioner Nigro and his team and all of us here at City Hall are working hard to increase diversity, ensure that all New Yorkers have equal opportunity to become firefighters, one of the most respected professions in this city, one we depend on. We want it to be truly available to all New Yorkers. This bill will help these efforts by allowing a better and more transparent view of the application process. Bottom line for us here at City Hall, we know New York City historically has had a great strength. Diversity has been our great strength. We have the world's greatest fire department, and we know it will grow even stronger as it comes to represent more fully all of the people in all of the neighborhoods of New York City. With that, I want to thank Speaker Melissa Mark-Viverito for her support, and now it's my honor to introduce our extraordinary Commissioner for the FDNY, Dan Nigro.
Well, as the mayor said, a focus of our department is to become more diverse in the future, and I think we're moving in the right direction. With the help of our partners in the City Council, we look forward to continuing that, and with the support of our mayor. So this bill is as important to us as it is to Council Member Rosenthal and all the other members who have supported this. So the department is quite pleased. We're pleased to be a partner here. We're pleased to provide this information. It should be available to everyone, and it will be. And going forward, we hope to continue the progress this department is making. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. And now, again, the chief sponsor of the bill. I thank her for her leadership on this and many other matters. You seem to have had a lot of legislation lately. You're on a roll. Council Member Helen Rosenthal.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Really appreciate that. And boy, I want to thank the Commissioner Nigro so much. You know, we had a hearing that felt a little intense at times, but what we learned about what was going on in the fire department was incredibly important. You were incredibly forthcoming, and you've been very generous and forward-thinking about this legislation. So I really want to thank you for that. I just want to say very quickly, I want to state the obvious. I should not become a firefighter. I tried lifting some of the equipment, and I fell down. and I should not have a mask on and try to run up 20 floors of stairs. There are women who should be. There are women who are perfectly capable. They have the physical strength, they have the mental strength to do this incredibly important job. And what the fire department is doing, incredibly important steps to open that door, from making sure that the physical test at the academy would be appropriate for anyone in terms of physical abilities and still meet the requirements, the good, solid, and high requirements to become a firefighter, but also make it relevant to what the job is. And so again, I really want to thank you for that. It's a big step forward. We have not seen an agency, a fire department, or a mayor who's open to engaging more citizens and more diversity in the fire department until now. So I thank you and look forward to signing the bill. Of course, I want to thank Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito and Chair Elizabeth Crowley for their leadership as well.
Let's sign the bill.
Let me go with two. Unless Councilor Shen or President for the time? No? Okay, two. Two? Two.
Here we go. And now, intro. 222A requires landlords to notify tenants of non-emergency building repairs. Lead sponsors are Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer and Councilmember Rosie Mendez. Now, maintenance of buildings often means interruption of heat or hot water or elevators. Obviously, this can be very disruptive to people's lives, and particularly hard for some of our fellow New Yorkers who are senior citizens or are disabled. Sadly, there are some landlords, minority of landlords, who are unscrupulous, who delay or withhold notification of repairs as a way to harass tenants, to literally try to push tenants out of their buildings for their own gain. This is obviously not acceptable to us and something we are fighting against. We've made a top priority protecting the rights of tenants, and we've invested intensely in the legal support that tenants need to fight this type of harassment. But it's also something that can be addressed through legislation, and this bill is a very smart way of doing that, requiring this notification of tenants in the building. It's another step to keeping renters in affordable housing, in homes they deserve to be in. I want to thank our HPD Commissioner Vicki Bean, our Buildings Commissioner Rick Chandler, excuse me, and Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, all for their support of this legislation. Now it is my honor to introduce and support our Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for all your support of tenants in general and affordable housing. And I am really, really honored to be co-sponsoring, really the prime sponsor, with the amazing friend and colleague, Councilmember Rosie Mendez. And I want to thank Jasmine Torres and Matt Vigiano and all the people from her side and her staff and legal services and NILAG, groups that really understand the importance of preserving housing. Like everyone else, I want to thank the speaker. I want to thank my friend Jamani Williams. He writes more text than anybody else I know. And his senior counsel, Jen Wilson.
You mean he texts?
he writes text. If you're on television, he puts a smiley within 5 minutes. That's a really good friend. And when he's on, I put a smiley to him too. And all of HPD, I know Vito's here. Where's Vito? He's like our amazing hero. The mayor forgot to thank you, but I will thank you.
Vito.
Yes. And this all happened, I think, from my perspective, because I have a friend in a wheelchair. She went to work in the morning, and in the afternoon she came home, and the elevator wasn't working, and she could not go up the 19 stories. And that's a perfect example of why this bill is necessary, and there was a wonderful discussion between HPD and the staffs and all of us, and Rosie and me, to make sure that it worked. And I think with this quality of life measure, tenants will receive fair warning and an opportunity to plan around disruptive maintenance work, which has to get done. Nobody argues that. It just has to be done so that the tenants are aware of it. I want to thank from our office Shula Warren, whom the mayor knows well, Hallie Chu and Adele Bartlett for all of their work on this legislation. Thank you very much, and particularly thank you to my friend, Councilmember Rosie Mendez.
Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Gail Brewer's friend, Councilmember Rosie Mendez.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the step up. It's helpful.
You're looking good.
So, this was Gail's bill. She carried it for many years, as you heard what happened to her friend, and so she conceived it. And in this legislative session, I was honored that she allowed me to reintroduce it and to work with her on it. And what this bill does today, it really just codifies common courtesy and common sense. You just let people know when a service is going to be offline, because you don't know how long it will be offline and how it will impact that person. So having said that, Madam Borough President, thank you for your leadership on this bill. And I want to thank my former legislative director, Jasmine Torres, my current director, Matt Vigiano, our joint director, Shula Warren, and the counsel to the Housing and Buildings Committee, Jennifer Wilcox. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to call up the chair of the Housing Committee, Jamani Williams, and as he speaks, I'm going to text to him with an emoticon telling him how great he's doing. Jamani Williams.
I want to get this.
You want it?
Yeah.
You can have it.
I want to be taller.
There you go.
I just want to.
You sure look tall.
Don't forget the smiley face. I want to thank, of course, the board president and my colleague, Rosie Mendez, for their leadership. As Councilman Mendez said, this is common courtesy and common respect. It's unfortunate that we have to legislate that sometimes, but we do, and I think this is a great example of government coming in, not being overly intrusive, really understanding what the problems are and making sure there's a remedy that fits right there. It doesn't do too much, but it gets to the heart of the matter and assisting tenants and assisting people in a manner that I think is what government should be doing. So thank you very much.
Amen. Let's sign the legislation.
Shula, come up here. Any interns from Vito? Interns? Vito, interns, back row.
Hop on in, guys.
All right, the bill's now law. Congratulations. All right. Now we go. All right, come on, folks. We got some more to do here. Here we go. Intro. 702A requires the Department of Aging to work with Department of Buildings, HPD, and the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities to develop a guide for building owners to help seniors safely age in place. The sponsors are Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito and Councilmember Margaret Chin. New York City is home to almost 1.5 million senior citizens, a number that is growing. Many seniors, of course, want to remain in their homes and in the communities they love as long as possible. But as residents age and face a number of challenges, including sometimes disabilities that increase safety risks, they need help to be able to stay in their communities and in their homes. This new guide will outline changes that can be made to accommodate older residents in their buildings. Changes like increased lighting and grab bars that make a world of difference. Simple, common sense changes that can really help. We, of course, must ensure the health and safety of all of our residents, and that obviously means our seniors as they age. We want to make sure they age well and gracefully, and they know that we are there to protect their health and safety. And we need to make sure New York City is a place for all, and that means giving people a chance to stay in the neighborhood they love. I want to thank our HPD Commissioner, Vicki Bean, our Buildings Commissioner, Rick Chandler, our Commissioner for the Office for People with Disabilities, Victor Calisi, of course, Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, and now it's my honor to introduce our wonderful Aging Commissioner, DFTA Commissioner, Donna Corrado.
Thank you.
You're almost as tall as me.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you said, seniors prefer to age in place where they have spent most of their lives. And the housing stock in New York City is not always conducive to aging in place, creating environmental hazards that further restrict their mobility and cause falls and injuries. According to a recent study by the Department of Health, falls are the #1 cause of fatalities due to injuries, and it's not to mention the $34 billion plus cost in healthcare costs related to falls every year. So this bill will go a long way in making residential apartments safer and provide a better quality of life for seniors, because those of us who work with seniors know how many are actually held hostage in their own homes. And this could be avoided by some very simple modifications and home repairs. So thank you. I thank Councilmember Chin and the Speaker, Mark Viverito, for introducing this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now the lead co-sponsor of the bill, the inimitable Margaret Chin.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. I want to first thank our Speaker, Melissa Mark Viverito, for her broad support for seniors since her election. Melissa have always been there with us, fighting for more fundings and for innovative policies to enable us to allow seniors to remain in their homes as they get older. And I also want to thank you, Mayor, for your support for affordable housing that seniors so desperately need, because you can't age in place without a place to age in.
Well said. That's good. That's a soundbite.
Right? And, of course, I wanted to thank our commissioner, who's our strong partner, fighting every day for our senior. And, Mayor, more funding for seniors in this budget, okay? Now, Intro 702A, which I co-sponsor with the Speaker, is about making New York City more age-friendly. It will mean the development of a guide so that landlords understand how they can make their dwellings safer and more accessible for their tenants as they get older. We're not forcing them, but we're guiding them how to do it. And you heard from the mayor and the commissioner. Something could be very simple as grab bars and better lighting. Lastly, I want to thank our staff, Kelly Taylor and Eric Bernstein, for their hard work on this and all their work on important senior issue. We couldn't do these works without you. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Margaret Chin is always on message. All right, let's sign the legislation.
More money.
Aren't they all?
Okay. Oops. Okay. Now, intro 764. Intro 764 amends the district plan, see, you're everywhere, of the Lower East Side Business Improvement District. The lead sponsors are Council members Jalissa Ferreras-Copeland, first time I've gotten to use that, and Margaret Chin. Lower East Side bid has served residents since 1993. This bill changes the method of assessing properties within the bid's boundaries, also modifies the bid's services, the bill provide capital and technical assistance programs to its stakeholders. I want to thank our SBS Commissioner Maria Torres Springer and of course Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito. I believe the chair is not with us, and then I will turn to the other lead co-sponsor. She's back, Councilmember Margaret Chin.
Well, thank you again, Mayor. I want to thank Chris Goddard at the Small Business Services and Tim Laughlin, the Executive Director of the Lower East Side BID, who's here with us today, for all their work on this modification to their assessment. We work very closely with the Lower East Side Business Improvement District on many different projects. This past weekend, I was there for the 75th anniversary of the Essex Street Market. We had a wonderful street fair with cakes and festivity, and they're looking forward to moving to a new market in a couple of years. But we want everyone to know that they're alive and well, and they're doing great businesses. And Tim, you guys were great out there. I'm so impressed with all the commitment and energy. So this assessment that changes will make sure the bill will enable the bid to do more to increase neighborhood vitality and foster the growth of small businesses in the Lower East Side. And I want to thank our chair of the Finance Committee, Council Member Farissa Ferreras-Copeland. I know we have to add Copeland in now. Jalissa Ferreras-Copeland.
She only changed the last name.
Okay. For working on this issue, and our wonderful finance staff, Rebecca Chasen, and the one and only Tanisha Edwards. So thank you, Tanisha Edwards. See, Mayor, you're making me laugh, but I still remember more funding for seniors.
Yeah. All right. I tried to throw you off your game, but it didn't work. All right, let's sign the bill.
Come on, Tim.
From the bid,
They didn't see me.
What numbers are here?
If I'm going to get arrested, right? I can't.
What's that? So much for a bunch of us getting arrested.
What time is the
Southeast
rest
Queens,
session?
huh?
One.
I'm from Southeast Queens. We try to stay away from Thank you.
You up next, John?
Okay. And now, Intro 240A. Intro 240A requires DEP to inspect catch basins annually and to report on their maintenance and repair, sponsored by Councilmember Jumaane Williams. We have nearly 150,000 catch basins in New York City. They help prevent trash and debris from going into the sewer system. We maintain them because it's key to managing our stormwater and our wastewater, and obviously to keeping our streets clear and not flooded. An important step to protecting the city's infrastructure and waterways is to make sure we maintain these catch basins properly, and it is essential to building a more resilient city as we outlined in the One NYC plan. I want to thank DEP Commissioner Emily Lloyd, Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, now introduce the even taller Councilmember Jumaane Williams.
Thank you. Is this another text? Another text?
Yeah.
One more text. Thank you.
You look great. Great job. Smiley face.
Thank you so much to the mayor. For parts of this city, including several residential roads, the Department of Environmental Protection checks these drains every 3 years. We know that it's not enough to adequately ensure that problematic drains are cleared. I'm proud to sponsor Intro 240, which will require DEP to submit semi-annual reports to the mayor and to the city council regarding the inspection, maintenance, and repair of catch basins disaggregated by community district. The bill would also require DEP to inspect every catch basin at least once per year and to unclog, repair a catch basin within 9 days from when a complaint is filed. These kind of things are like potholes. They are things that bother you, and you often wonder what can be done about it. And we are trying our best to move forward and fix these issues. I know they're affecting places like residential areas like mine in Brooklyn, and residential areas like those in the Chairs District in Queens, but also places in Manhattan and businesses in Manhattan that have to deal with these issues. So I think this is one that may not get a lot of publicity, but will affect the lives of people across the city. And so I'd like to thank the mayor, Mayor de Blasio, Speaker Melissa Margarito, and of course the Council's Chair of Environmental Protections, Donovan Richards, who is also the co-prime of the bill for supporting the legislation. I also want to thank Samara Swanton, Counsel to the Environmental Protections Committee, for drafting the bill, my Deputy Chief of Staff, Nick Smith, and Eric Landau, and Associate Commissioner of Public Affairs at DEP, and Deputy Director Reggie Thomas, who I know is the most happy this is signed because I will no longer be bothering him. Thank you.
Nicely done.
For the moment.
Yeah.
For the moment.
For the moment. Now, would you like this or not?
Yeah, I guess
you like
today,
it going with it?
I
Okay,
think
now
I'll be a little taller.
the chair of the Environmental Protection Committee, Councilmember Donovan Richards.
I think we see eye to eye. We see eye to eye today. On many other days, too.
Yes.
Well, good afternoon. I stand here today to show appreciation for this administration's willingness, more than willingness, to move forward on issues that have systematically plagued many of the communities that will see relief as a result of Intro 240A. If I may share some insight as a representative and resident of Southeast Queens, for far too long a blind eye has been turned towards our residents, particularly homeowners who have been inundated with flooding as a result of inadequate infrastructure, poor maintenance, and irresponsive government, which is changing now. The complaints have come pouring in about the clogs, the emitted odors, and even the need for more drains. When residents complain about their streets being flooded, we shouldn't blame them for living on that street. We have an obligation to ensure that the appropriate infrastructure is present and well maintained. This bill also speaks to the discussion of strengthening our workforce and the preservation of home ownership. This bill is also about quality assurance. We are making credible investments into our city's infrastructure. Let's continue maintaining it by keeping it clean and clear. With that said, I commend this administration, Mayor de Blasio, as it continues to show an unprecedented amount of attention to the needs of everyday New Yorkers in Brooklyn and in particular in Southeast Queens, with your investment of $1.5 billion for infrastructure for Southeast Queens. My residents are very grateful and look forward to continuing to work with your agency. I'd like to thank the cast of hardworking individuals who made sure that this bill is come to pass. That is Councilmember Jamani Williams, who doesn't send me smiley faces. He's always sending me work at midnight, but that's another story for another day.
Faux pas.
Just like this Saturday when I should have been enjoying time with my wife, but that's another story for another day. All righty. I will also like to thank Commissioner Emily Lloyd, Richard Muller, Eric Landau, Reggie Thomas, Samara Swanson, Bill Murray, Jarrell Burney, Frank Joseph, Mercedes Buchanan, and also your Deputy Chief, Nick Smith. Thank you so much.
All right, let's sign it.
Down the front, please.
Bill Murray. Come on. I was going to say, if it was the other Bill Murray, it would be to kind of think the actual Bill Murray would have done that. Not so you're not actual. Okay. Oh, sorry. Congratulations. Cool.
But for the signing, not for the...
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Let's get cultured. Let's get cultured. Let's get cultured.
It's about time. Let's do it.
Hey, I think it's time to be cultural, don't you?
Never too late. Never too late.
I'm trying.
First lady.
Boy, did she get cultured.
Oh, I heard
Did you see the lineup?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Go
I'm
look at the
jealous.
artists who are there.
Yeah.
You will
I'm
cavell.
very jealous. I was so jealous.
Okay, intro 742A increases community input in the Percent for Art program. The sponsors, lead sponsors, Councilmember Jimmy Van Bramer and Councilmember Lori Kumbo. The Percent for Art law requires 1% of the budget for eligible city-funded construction projects be spent on public art. This has helped to brighten lives and beautify neighborhoods across the city. Since the law was passed in 1982, it's funded over 300 public art installations, including sculptures, mosaics, and stained glass. The bill requires the Department of Cultural Affairs to hold additional public hearings on works of art being considered for public display. And let's note that public art is part of what makes New York City great. It's vital to our city's cultural fabric, and we must ensure that our fellow New Yorkers have a say in what they see every day in their communities. I want to thank Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito and now introduce our extraordinary Commissioner for Cultural Affairs, the beloved Tom Finkelpearl.
So thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. When I joined city government the first time 25 years ago, I ran this program for 6 years, and that law was already 8 years old.
Wow.
So if anybody can do the math, over 30 years ago, the law was passed. It's produced wonderful public art. There have been no changes. There's been a lot of change in the way people think about public art and community input and interaction. So we really embrace this idea of more public interaction, more hearings, advance notice, et cetera. And I want to point out that my director of Percent for Art, Kendall Henry, and deputy director, Reina Shabata, are here today. I worked with Kendall for 4 years in the 20 years ago on this program. So really excited. It's a great moment for public art. And thanks so much to the council, to Jimmy, to Lori, to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, the distinguished chair of the Cultural Affairs Committee, a very cultured man himself, Council Member Jimmy Van Bramer.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and to our great Cultural Affairs Commissioner, Tom Finkelpearl, perhaps the greatest Commissioner of Cultural Affairs that the city has ever known. Great choice, Mr. Mayor, and to my co-prime sponsor, Councilmember Cumbo, who loves culture and the arts as much as I do. Public art says so much about who we are as a city. I support public art, this Percent for Art program. Commissioner Finkelpearl is really among the most foremost thinkers about public art. So it's so important that the city, which invests millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars in public art, make sure that we're doing all that we can to ensure that the communities where that art will be placed have a meaningful say in what that art looks like, where it goes. Community engagement and empowering communities all across the city is everything that this moment is about. And if we do that work right, we will increase support for public art. We will support artists even more, and we will strengthen the bond between artists and the community where that art will be. That can only be a very, very good thing for the city of New York. We had a piece of public art proposed that is underway in my district, a Department of Transportation project where a very significant piece of public art will go. There created a lot of, bless you, discussion about that art. And Commissioner Finkelpearl and I had a town hall meeting, and where some folks predicted a bloodbath, we had lots of support for that piece of art. We actually calmed the controversy and sped up the approval and made sure that everyone was on board. That's what this bill is aimed to do for everyone. I want to thank Commissioner Finkelpearl again for coming and doing that cultural town hall with us in Long Island City, and for all of his support for everything when it comes to culture and the arts. This is the second time in a row where we have signed a piece of cultural legislation. We did the cultural plan a couple of weeks ago, and now we're doing this Percent for Art. So culture is on the move in the city. I want to thank Mayor de Blasio, Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, Minta Kilawan, our legislative counsel right there, her second meeting in a row where we passed significant legislation. My team, Cody Ryder, my Deputy Chief of Staff for Legislation and Budget, Deputy Chief of Staff for Media and Public Policy, Jason Banray, who's tweeting right now, and Matt Wallace, my Chief of Staff, who is in Queens, Chloe Rivera, our policy analyst on the committee, and all of the council members for supporting it, especially my co-prime sponsor, Councilmember Lori Cumbo. Thank you very much.
Nicely done. And Councilmember Lori Cumbo not only loves culture, she started her own museum once.
That's right.
That's devotion. Councilmember Lori Cumbo.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad that we were able to save the best legislation for the end, and we're able to...
She meant yours, Corey.
Yours too, Corey.
Corey, it was very collegial. Yeah.
But I am so proud to be here. This is such a great opportunity to continue to push an arts agenda forward. And so over the last 33 years, the Percent for Art program has incorporated art into the infrastructure and the very fiber of New York City, making New York City a richer place and making art accessible to all. The one thing that was missing throughout this entire process was the public. And so this is going to be an incredible opportunity to hear the public's voice. With over 8 million residents in New York City, it's so important and critical that we include all of those diverse voices, because I believe it is through those diverse voices that we are going to have public art and art as well as in our institutions that are more diverse. Whether we are in the Blue Room in City Hall or we are outside at Weeksville for a new installation, it's so important that the diversity of the artwork represent and reflect the people that live in New York City. And I believe that by incorporating the voice of the people of New York City, we are going to see that level of diversity. So I'm so pleased to be here today. I'm so pleased to be able to participate in this process. It has been an honor and a pleasure to work with Councilmember Jimmy Van Bramer, who is batting 2 for 2 already and showing very early on in this year how devoted he is to the arts. And I look forward to working with him on the cultural plan, as well as some exciting legislation moving forward as it pertains to the arts. And so I want to thank Monica Abend on my staff. I want to thank Drew Gabriel, as well as Aminta Killawan, and the opportunity to work with our Commissioner Finkelpearl, as well as with Kendall Henry, is really bringing like an entire exciting dream team together of arts professionals who are devoted to this and who are going to make a real change in the city of New York with the arts. So Mayor de Blasio, thank you for this. And we too, along with Councilmember Chin, are looking for an increase in arts funding. And so we certainly look forward to that. And I thank you all for the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
All right, let's sign the bill. Okay, intro 592A. There's a lot of legislation today. Intro 592A requires a report analyzing the cumulative impact of the hotel industry on the city's economy and places short-term restrictions on substantial conversions of certain Manhattan hotels to other uses, pending the preparation of the report and the implementation of the report's recommendations. The lead sponsor is Councilmember Corey Johnson. As the legislative findings for this bill state, the hotel industry is vital to tourism in New York City and provides quality jobs for many of the city's residents. When hotels are converted into residential apartments, the result can create significant risks for economic activity and quality of life in affected communities, as well as job losses that are of great concern to all New Yorkers. There have been several such conversions in recent years. The report mandated by this bill will help the city determine the full extent of the economic and other risks and impacts of hotel conversions and how to respond to those risks and impacts. In the meantime, The short-term restrictions on certain substantial conversions imposed by the bill will maintain the status quo to the extent possible, so that the report can be prepared and any appropriate recommendations of the report can be implemented. During the interim period, hotel owners seeking to convert will be able to obtain waivers from the Board of Standards and Appeals if they can demonstrate a need under the bill's standards. The Council and my administration are committed to doing right by our economy and all hard-working New Yorkers, and this bill's report and short-term restrictions give elected officials and the public the tools they need to further those goals. I want to thank Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, and now introduce the lead sponsor of the legislation, Council Member Corey Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been a busy bill signing day. I am proud to be here today as this important piece of legislation is signed into law by our great mayor, Mayor de Blasio. I represent the 3rd Council District in the City Council, which is home to many world-class tourist attractions, such as the Theater District, the High Line, Times Square, and it also houses much of the city's hotel industry. New York City's hotel industry is a bedrock component to our economy. It funds critical services in our budget and provides many stable, good-paying, middle-class jobs to hardworking New Yorkers. But this vital sector of tourism, of our tourism industry, and the jobs that it creates are presently at risk. Already, hotel conversions have lost the city over 1,000 jobs to this practice in the last decade, and this trend may accelerate. Hotels with over 1,000 rooms typically employ over 1,000 employees, and they provide a steady source of customers in the neighborhood that they are located in. If even 1/4 of those rooms are converted, we are talking about hundreds of good middle-class jobs lost. If this trend continues, it's my belief that we'll continue on the trajectory towards being a city that's geared toward the very wealthy with very few small businesses and living wage jobs to show for it. This short-term stop on these conversions, which has not yet been contemplated, will allow stakeholders to determine a long-term fix to protect vibrant neighborhoods, local small businesses, the tourism industry, and good middle-class jobs. The analysis will provide us with clear short-term and long-term impacts of hotel conversions with respect to our city's economy, including tourism and job availability, as well as land use repercussions and other potential impacts. In drafting this report, the city will consult with stakeholders in the hotel industry to ensure that people who know it best are contributing to an accurate assessment. I want to thank my colleagues and the Speaker. I want to thank Mayor de Blasio for signing this bill into law today. I want to thank my Legislative Director, Louis Cholden Brown, Matt Gawab, the Legislative Director for the Council, Jen Wilcox, the Attorney for the Housing and Buildings Committee, and I want to thank John Paul Lupo from the Office of Legislative Affairs, who I know spent an enormous amount of time on this, and I look forward to getting this assessment done. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Let's sign it.
No, I mean.
Okay. That is accurate.
You want to sign it? Yes, that's accurate.
Great, thank you. Okay, finally, intros 761A and 772A amend recently enacted laws aimed at improving the welfare of animals sold in pet shops. The lead sponsors are Councilmembers Corey Johnson and Councilmember Elizabeth Crowley. These laws include several important reforms. The most significant one mandates that pet shops obtain dogs and cats from licensed breeders. Another important reform requires the microchipping of dogs and cats, and yet another reform sets standards for the humane care of animals in pet shops. These bills amend definitions and clarify provisions of original legislation to ensure that pet shop owners and customers understand their rights and obligations. One example, you could interpret the original bill as requiring dogs and cats to be microchipped twice, which is obviously not the intention. When I ran for this office, I pledged to build a more humane city for animals and, of course, New Yorkers as well. These bills ensure the city moves towards that reality, and they clarify how we get there. I want to thank our Health Commissioner, Dr. Mary Bassett, Speaker Melissa Mark-Viverito, Councilmember Crowley, as I said, and, of course, Councilmember Johnson. And just a few words in Spanish about all the legislation that we have done today, and then we will sign these pieces. Hoy he firmado varias leyes locales. Una de ellas asegura la igualdad de oportunidades para las personas que quieren unirse a nuestro Departamento de Bomberos. Otras mejoran la seguridad en las viviendas de personas mayores, permiten a los residentes opinar sobre obras de arte público y protegen la infraestructura de drenaje de nuestra ciudad. Las leyes que he firmado hoy harán a nuestra ciudad más limpia, más segura y más justa. With that, let us sign the legislation. Concludes our hearing.